30,000 Indigenous Amazonian people have been protesting, barricading roads and railways in order to protest about the seizure of their land. Last Friday, some 600 Peruvian riot police and helicopters attacked a peaceful blockade in the province of Bagua, killing and injuring protesters by firing live bullets and tear gas into the crowd. The people were actually sleeping at the time. It was the early morning, and the police descended upon them and just massacred. It is not known how many were killed, but at least 60 were massacred. And we don't know how many were killed because the police have hidden a lot of the bodies. They have even seized bodies from the hospital, according to eyewitness accounts, and have wrapped them and thrown them from helicopters into rivers and ravines.
Bueno, primero que nada queremos expresar nuestro más profundo apoyo y solidaridad con el pueblo aborigen, el pueblo originario del Perú, ya que son varias comunidades y varios pueblos que están oponiéndose a la explotación de sus tierras, de su territorio. Hoy día el Perú se levanta en apoyo a todo al pueblo originario del Perú. Sabemos que se están llamando varias movilizaciones en apoyo al principal líder indígena, que en este momento está pidiendo refugio en la embajada de Nicaragua. Ha sido admitido y fundamentalmente hoy que se está llamando a casi un paro nacional en apoyo a todo el pueblo aborigen y el pueblo originario del Perú, porque el gobierno de Alan García quiere vincular estos hechos a un problema internacional, culpando a Bolivia, culpando a Venezuela de que están de alguna forma envueltos en este levantamiento indígena, y no quiere aceptar de que el Tratado de Libre Comercio con los Estados Unidos es totalmente objetable por la comunidad y el pueblo peruano, ya que esto daña y va a perjudicar toda la Amazonía. Este es el inicio de la explotación y destrucción de la Amazonía. Es por eso que los pueblos originarios se oponen a este tratado y se oponen a la explotación de las empresas petroleras y mineras que quieren inundar la Amazonía. Por eso reciban todo nuestro apoyo y nuestra solidaridad desde acá, desde Australia. Un gran saludo. Gracias.
Happening in Peru is no different to what we're seeing happening in Australia. We're seeing the free trade agreement pushed by the US, kowtowing to big business, and with no feeling for the land or for the people who live on it and have had the right to live on it. We can't stand for this. The Peruvian Alan Garcia standing up there and lying, or what would I say, misinterpreting the facts that police are dead and caused by Indigenous people standing up for the right for their land is just unbelievable. But people buy it, unfortunately, and that's how we're seeing the world annihilated these days. The planet before our very eyes is just being destroyed. Indigenous people are demonised, locked up. It's just hideous. And now shot dead. 83, I think, was one count of the numbers killed for standing up for the land.
I'd like to bring my love and solidarity for our Indigenous Peruvian brothers and sisters from our Māori people of Aotearoa. What we are witnessing in Peru is a logical extension of what a free trade agreement does to Indigenous peoples. The free trade agreement values corporations over the lives and rights of Indigenous people. It values the rights of corporations to go in and mine and destroy Indigenous lands, and governments who sign free trade agreements throw Indigenous rights and Indigenous peoples away. And what we saw last weekend in Peru was a massacre. The government have been softening up, calling Indigenous people terrorists. Shame, how dare they? Shame! They tried to hide the bodies and burn bodies. What does that mean? It's the same thing that happened here. Clear off the Indigenous people, kill them and steal their land and resources. We're saying that's wrong. And the earth of moral conscience, and you all know that that is wrong, to kill people off their land, to mine it, to look for oil and to destroy forests. We're witnessing today, there are rallies all around the world today and tomorrow stand here with our Peruvian Indigenous brothers and sisters, and Alan Garcia must resign, and that the whole world is watching. Kia ora. We have to acknowledge the strength of people power and the power of the internet that stopped the Peruvian government from covering up this massacre. The land that you're walking on now is Aboriginal land, and that we are all the beneficiaries of Aboriginal genocide. The same thing that's happening in Peru has happened here and is happening in Australia at the moment. Move off Indigenous people off their lands, demonise them, and then use and abuse and rape their land for resources. Shame! We demand that the Peruvian government immediately suspend the violent repression of Indigenous protests in the state of emergency. We demand that the Peruvian government repeal the free trade laws that allow oil logging and agricultural companies easy access into Indigenous territories. We demand that the Peruvian government respect Indigenous peoples' constitutionally guaranteed rights to self-determination, to ancestral territories and to prior consultation. We demand that the Peruvian government enter into good faith process of dialogue with Indigenous peoples to resolve this conflict.
My name's Robbie Thorpe. I'm an Indigenous Australian of this colonised place. And I'm here today to show my support for the people of Peru, the Indigenous people, who are being massacred over there as we speak. And on behalf of my people, I want to show that we support them. We can see what's going on, and we can understand what's going on. Because the same things happen in this country. Colonisation of the planet is all the same. It means the genocide of Indigenous people. Australia's one of these places. There's no treaties here, there's no consent, and there's no respect for the Indigenous people. White Australia has got a black history. They've been committing genocide here on our people for 200 years. If it wasn't for genocide, you wouldn't be here, White Australia. If it wasn't for your racist policies over 200 years, you wouldn't have your stolen wealth. Just like what's happening in Peru. Have a look. See what they're doing to the Indigenous people in Peru today. It's the same place where you're coming from, in this country. This is stolen sacred land. This is a stolen wealth. Just like all the other colonised places on the earth. Get real, people. Get real. Stop genocide in Australia. Stop genocide in Peru. Stop genocide in Sri Lanka and everywhere else this crime is occurring. I'm here today to show some solidarity for the people of Peru, the Indigenous people. Because I know it's important. If you can stop genocide happening anywhere, it helps everybody on this planet. It's the most despicable of all crimes. It was the reason why the United Nations was set up in the first place.